Hello everyone, since we're approaching the end of the year, I figured I'd make a video I've wanted to make for ages, and it's a staple of Doctor Who YouTube, but I haven't really been able to due to, my own difficulties filming it, but today is finally the day I've managed to get someone to film the footage I need for my room/collection tour. Now, obviously this video won't show everything in my collection, as there's a handful of things dotted about the house that obviously aren't in my office, one of which is a big Dalek, which should be showing on screen now. However, the majority of stuff that I'd want to display is going to be featured in this video. So yeah, basically, you're going to be able to see my entire collection, as well as room and all that sort of stuff, setup and things like that. So yeah, with that said, let's get into it. Also, feel free to subscribe if you are in fact new. We're only about 30 subscribers away from 17,300, and we're trying to get to 20,000 by the end of the year, so any support would be greatly appreciated. If you enjoy Doctor Who content, we have something out daily over here, so feel free to stay subscribed for any new Doctor Who videos. So the first thing I want to show off to you guys is something you might not even know exists, unless you've been in very limited streams where it's been shown. The Tharries mural. This was a gift from my dad on one of my birthdays. He wanted to basically get me something personal, so he made this mural to basically represent the channel. Some of you may recognise it as the logo for memberships, as it was the original logo of the channel. Now there's been a slight alteration, but this version of the logo still lives on through memberships. Heading leftwards, next to the entry door to my office, or one of them at least, you can see my collection of Eagle Moss figures. These were mostly bought in bulk, but you can see a few that I've added into the collection over the years through various trips to different comic shops and the like. Some of my favourites include the Cyber King, Time Lord Victorious figures, and Syl from Vengeance on Varos. We also have a couple of the 3.75-inch figures on here as well, mainly because they looked out of place on my regular shelf, including the likes of the 3.75-inch Capaldi figure along with TARDIS. Next up is the desk. There's not a whole lot to report on this front side other than my main monitor area, as well as my Blue Yeti microphone, 2 lights for recording, Logitech Brio webcam on top of the monitor, and one of my personal favourite additions to the desk, an Amazon Echo Show, which actually shows different displays from TARDIS monitors, so it really does look like I live inside the TARDIS. Yes, I am that sad. On the other side of my desk, because it's double-sided, you can also see where I hold my remotes for the various lights, as well as, of course, the channel's main mascot, the Cyberman head, known as Dennis, or alternatively, as Mike Hawke, because some of you really wanted him to be called that. Also on display is a Matt Smith display figurine. There's numerous of these, including, I believe, the 4th Doctor, Captain Jack Harkness. However, I saw this in a shop once and was like, yeah, I kind of fancy having that on my desk, as 11 is my favourite Doctor. Getting on to some of the more fun stuff though, above the desk is a shelf that you will not be able to see in most of my videos. However, before we even get to my first shelf, we also have a steel picture of the Cybermen from the episode The Invasion. This was picked up during a trip to York. My dad, again, I think was the one who picked this one up, so yeah, thanks Dad. Then we have the first shelf. So the first shelf is basically kind of where I keep most things that I don't know where else to put, rather than the sequence of Doctors that you're used to seeing in my, regular videos being all in order. These are basically just where I put my leftover Doctors, so you can see here, we've got things like the Season 12 Tom Baker, as well as various Paul McGanns from the new set, as well as the first Doctor from the Centerite set, I believe that is. We've got a couple of the new Silurians, some 13 companions that don't really need to be on the main set, because we've got some of those. We've got this Series 7 set with Matt Smith, Jenna Coleman, Oswin, and Amy Pond, respectively. Some Sycorax accompanied by Rassilon, 10th Doctor in Spacesuit, as well as River Song in Science and Library. My general philosophy when it comes to displaying figures is to either keep it so that they look like they belong together, or keep them to sets, or in some cases, like in this shelf, you'll have random stuff next to each other, like the Silurian and Scarecrow. We also have 2 Clockwork Droids in the centre, as well as a Supreme Dalek and 2008 version of the Davros figure, which I just think fit together because, still on Earth Journey's End, in a similar way to how I think 10th Doctor Spacesuit and Series 4 River Song just kind of look right together. However, my favourite feature of this shelf is undoubtedly the Cyberman section, which has all of the current Cybermen that I own in sequential order, as well as a Cyber Controller atop his throne in the middle, flanked by 2 slightly damaged and worn Cybermen, which was actually part of a unique eBay purchase they're not originally like that. I actually didn't want some slightly altered versions. I wanted the normal ones, but actually looking at it now, it kind of makes them stand out more against all the other Silver Cybermen. If you're wondering why there's a gap in the Cyberman list, it's because character options haven't released a new, like, Nightbird Silver or Chibnall era Cyberman, so that gap will likely remain until the end of time. I also just think that these Cybermen being right next to the Invasion Cyberman picture is just some nice visual symmetry. I think you can also tell, due to the various pieces of Cyberman memorabilia across this room, that the Cybermen are undoubtedly my favourite of the Doctor Who villains. Moving on to the second shelf, this is where I keep most of my big figures, so you've got things like the K1 robot, the Genesis Arc, the various TARDIS boxes from various Doctors. I like to have them all poking out from the TARDISes respectively, as I think that just looks quite cool and is a cool image. I am missing an 11th Doctor box, which I did have at one point, but I no longer do. It must have just been sold off at one point. Because that's the thing, a lot of my various Doctor Who collectibles got sold off at various different points, and I've only just started building back a sizable collection. Here is where I also keep some of the various classic character options releases, including the 2 Sensorites to accompany that first Doctor. The Genesis Arc was also next to Dalek Sec originally, but I needed more space for various other figures, so it was moved. We've also got the 2 classic companion sets with Sarah Jane, Romana 1 and Romana 2, the droids from Earthshock, which admittedly do look a bit funky there, the Vord and Ian Chesterton sets from remaining Doctors, including the 7th Doctor from that Time War set, multiple remaining 10th Doctors that just have no other place to go. 2 unit sets, one being the Claws of Axos, I believe, and the other being Terror of the Zygons with that classic 4th Doctor look. We also have the 5 Doctors 3rd Doctor and the Rastan Warrior robot next to each other, as well as the 2 Doctors, 2nd Doctor and Perry, as well as one of my favourite little pieces together. We've got the Raggedy 11th Doctor next to the recently released 10th Doctor from that one comic story, which was a weird release, but I think they look quite cool together, I don't know why. Next to these shelves, we have 2 main pictures. One of the completely automatic K9. This was picked up in the same shop in York that the original Cyberman metal frame was, as well as this Cyberman one, which I'm not sure where this was from. However, they just looked kind of natural together. I think it's a possibility that this might be one of the last things I got from the Doctor Who experience, but I'm not 100% on that. Here you can also see my collection of Doctor Who DVDs held in a DVD case, along with my Wi-Fi router at the top to keep Wi-Fi going in the office. I also do have a couple of collection box sets, but I think they're in storage in other parts of other rooms. To be honest, I tend to just use BritBox for my various Doctor Who watching needs. For some reason I have 2 copies of the 5 Doctors, along with various other oddities and a couple of new series DVDs, which I grew up with and used a lot in my childhood. My collection of classic Doctor Who DVDs isn't the biggest, mainly because, as I said, I kind of just use BritBox now, so I went through a really big phase of collecting classic Who DVDs and then I kind of slowed down. However, a lot of the stories I've got I like having, they're nice to have. So here's a cool little thing that you might not see. Next to the framed pictures and the DVDs, we actually have a Doctor Who crew badge, which is actually a real Doctor Who crew badge, which was gifted to me by I think a sort of teaching assistant whose, I think, son worked as a runner on the set of Doctor Who during the Moffat era. So this is actually an authentic Doctor Who crew badge. I often wondered, you know, in the months after the Moffat era ended, maybe I could get away with being on set with that old badge, but I imagine they've been updated several times since then, so now it just is one of my little collectibles in my room. If you're wondering what that gold thing is, it's a part of that fob watch that I used in that one video where I'm doing a short about how I found the Doctor's memories. And then we finally come to the main wall, which is the space that most of you will likely be familiar with. Going from the top first, we have various pictures of me from various conventions with various different actors from Doctor Who. Main ones being Colin Baker, Paul McGann, David Tennant, Sylvester McCoy, and Catherine Tate. This collection will probably expand because I'm going to 2 cons, but I thought, you know, I'll make this video now. And then going on to the main shelves themselves, we have, on top of the shelves, we have most of the Eagle Moss Dalek releases. These I got basically via 2 means, so one of which was just basically buying the 2 sets. I think one's called the Parliament set, one's called the Drone set, something like that. And then I just added a couple more, like the Resolution Dalek, the Revolution Dalek, and again the Revolution Dalek in red form as well. I just think that all the Daleks look really cool together, so yeah, that's why I did that. Shelf 1 arguably contains the most, like, sort of cohesion in my collection, so you've got the 7th Doctor from what I believe is the Silver Nemesis set, accompanied by the Ace and Imperial Dalek from Remembrance. They just make sense together. You also have the 12th Doctor and Davros from their respective sets. 2 Smilers, for obvious reasons, they just make sense together. You've got Dalek Sec and one of the Beast things from Series 2. I'm not sure what their exact name is, but yeah. Basically, I put a lot of the RTD monsters together just because they make sense. And then next to them, we have Bill Potts, an Ice Warrior, and Missy. The main reason I put these all together, even though Missy's technically in the wrong outfit for Series 10, is that, I don't know, they all appear in Series 10, so it just kind of made sense. And then before we get to the main Doctors in the middle, which I'll get to, we have Tujadoon, a Carrionite, Martha Jones, and Laszlo, obviously all Series 3 figures, along with a Pig Slave, and the one cat guy from Gridlock, whose name I forget, as well as the Fan, with 13 in particular being the US Blue variant. Interestingly, I do have all of the 13 variants. They're just dotted around various places. So you might have seen earlier, one was in the TARDIS atop the right-hand side of the wall, one is here, and one is in the main Doctor lineup, which we'll go over in a sec. The second shelf, again, features some relative cohesion, I'd like to think. We've got 3 Masters, which is the Jacoby, Johnson from End of Time, and Purple Missy. Obviously, all Masters, they make sense. We've got a bunch of different Sontarans, one of which is from the 2 Doctor set, I think. One is obviously a new series Sontaran, and the other 2 are from, I think, I'm not 100% sure which set they're from. I think probably Sontaran Experiment, but I could be wrong. We also have Big Silence and Pegdoll figures flanked by fleshy 11th Doctor, all Series 6 figures. Classic and modern Silurian obviously make sense together, both Silurians. We've got a Slitheen and the Slitheen child from Sarah Jane Adventures. I think these two look adorable together. I don't know what it is, they just look like a little family up there. It's adorable. We have the Gelf Ghost Zombie Lady from Series 1, The Unquiet Dead. Harry Sullivan and Tom Baker. I'm not sure what story that's from, I think. Probably the Talons Tom Baker figure, I think, but I thought, since Tom and Harry obviously shared stories, even though Harry doesn't appear in Talons of Wen-Chiang. We also have the Rose and K9, which came together in a set, as well as Sarah Jane herself. That's more Series 2 themed, school reunions, Sarah Jane, K9, so I thought they made sense together. And then we have the Resolution Dalek, accompanied by the yellow Paradigm Dalek from the early Moffat years. Interestingly, I actually acquired this from George Sheard. I think he sold it on eBay and now I just have it in my collection. Interestingly as well, a couple of these figures were from Confused Adipose as well, so there's actually a secret black market of figures that get sold by Doctor Who YouTubers. I also forgot to mention this one Time War Dalek being accompanied by a random Series 5 soldier. To be honest, there's not really much of a reason for that other than I didn't have anywhere else to put him. So there he remains. And then, yeah, going over the Doctor lineup, there's been a couple of additions and alterations to these over the years. Most of them originate from the original 11 Doctors set, which I still have the box for, it's in the other room. Some of which have been altered through the years, though. For example, I changed out the 8th Doctor figure for the new TV movie 8th Doctor figure because I just thought it looked a bit nicer. The 11 figure is also the Series 7B 11 figure, and obviously 12 and 13 had to be added on as well, along with War. And the 10th Doctor figure is also from one of the newer sets, because I just think they look nicer. I am considering replacing my 9th Doctor in my main set with the new release, however, it does look slightly different, so I'm a bit torn on that. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Below all my shelves, we have my collection of sonic screwdrivers. Admittedly, these guys do look a bit worse for wear, and I do have more than these. I'm not sure where my 10th Doctor character option Sonic went, but we have War, Rivers, Pertwees, 12s, 8s, and 11s. We also have, below that, we have the 2 Universal Remote sonic screwdrivers, both the 11 and 12, well, both the 11 and 10th Doctor variants. I say 11 and 10th. The 11th Doctor one remote I have is actually the 12th Doctor variant because that was the only one that extended, so there's a fun fact. I also have my little tribute to the Doctor's wife. You've got the Doctor, nephew, uncle, and Idris. I don't know why I've decided to have a little tribute to Doctor's wife here, but I don't know, I like the story, so fair enough. And then I've got one of the big scale, I think Eagle Moss Davros figures, which I picked up at HMV, not realising how much it was, and then it was too awkward to tell him I didn't want to keep it, so it stays there. And then finally, on the very far right hand side of the room, We have my signed Paul McGann picture, which I picked up at Telford Comic Con, as well as my main door, which features a signed picture of Louise Jameson, which I won in a charity live stream from Mr. TARDIS, so thank you, Mr. TARDIS, as well as my calendar, which I struggle to keep up to date because it actually is taped to the door. But yes, that's how I keep track of time in these walls that I've created for myself. But yeah, that pretty much concludes the room/setup tour. I hope that you enjoyed this. It's not really something I've done before, but I quite enjoyed talking about all my various knickknacks and various little things. It's not something I've been able to do before. If you did enjoy this video and you enjoyed this more laid-back sort of look around at my room, feel free to like and subscribe if you're new. We try and do Doctor Who content every single day. Obviously, we're at the end of 2022 now, and whilst there might be some changes heading into next year, I might do another update next year going over any additional changes made. So yeah, stick around if you want to see that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.